Why do so many people who seemingly have less talent than me, less skill, less hours put in, are doing more? Why is that? If I'm so smart, what is it that I lack that they have? What's up, Stop Sinking family? Welcome back to the show. We as society put IQ and intelligence on a pedestal. We think people who accomplish so much must have done it because they have some mental capacity many of us don't. They are gifted. They must be geniuses and savants. And yes, there's definitely an aspect of aptitude to the great internet entrepreneurs, the billionaires. I'm not saying intelligence isn't important, but there are plenty of smart people in the world who don't accomplish much in life. One of my favorite Joe Budden lyrics: people with degrees who never made it hot nor turned up the degrees. People with credentials, accolades, paperwork that couldn't figure out how to make their paperwork. Plenty of smart people who don't accomplish much. So what's that disparity being caused by? If intelligence was the difference maker, wouldn't all people with high IQs automatically succeed? The truth is, intelligence probably works against you. It alone is not the key to success. Many people of high intelligence tend to be frustrated in life, tend to be depressed, tend to be upset. Many of them don't know how to unlock their gifts to reap the rewards that are due for them. They're plagued by overthinking, overanalyzing, and planning. Like having too much money when you're starting a business. You are blinded by opportunity. You aren't in enough pain when a chunk is lost because it's a small percentage of this overall chunk, as opposed to when you have limited funds, limited resources, and having to preserve and make precise decisions with those limited resources. Or if you have too much time to get something done. It all gets burnt and poorly optimized and is poorly maximized in its utility. So too much is not good. Very often, smart people don't accomplish much. They always feel like they don't know enough, always gathering more information. As a smart person, you are deathly afraid of your own abilities and your shortfalls. You know what you don't know, and that scares you, which makes you doubt everything you know and possibly even confuse you, or not fully be able to reconcile it with everything you've known. You become obsessively concerned with what else is out there that you don't know and the consequences of not knowing it. And because your capacity to learn and understand, instead of just accepting that there will always be things that you don't know and need to move forward anyway, you instead are taken on this never-ending task to gain understanding on all the topics to negotiate with that fear of not knowing. Understanding the consequences makes you risk-averse, which you try to manage by de-risking through more information, not knowing when to stop. It causes your analysis paralysis. You're paralyzed by all there is to know, all you don't know, and the constant chase of not wanting to make a blind mistake. You feed your own fear of failing. This gap of what you don't know also makes you excessively humble. Knowing all you don't know makes you feel less than. You default to a lower position. You feel like an imposter for all the success you might have already attained. You shouldn't possibly be where you are considering all the flawed parts of you, all the things that you don't know. And you feel like an imposter. And you reinforce your need to go out and seek more information. And because you have the capacity to learn, you won't just accept that you don't know things, and you will not always know everything there is to know. You get obsessed about learning everything you can. and it slows you down. In David Allen's book on a productivity system called Getting Things Done, GTD, he talks about the common downfalls of smart people. One of them being the theme of his book, trying to overuse their brain for everything to their detriment. We can remember a lot of things, but we can't remember everything that we need to do and can't use our brains to remind ourselves to remember. No matter how smart you are not an alarm clock. You can't remember to remind yourself. But the story that stuck with me was about how smart people tend to fall victim to their imagination, their overactive thinking, whereas stupid people charge forward. He gives an example of doing taxes. Where a stupid person would just get it done, a smart person would sit down and first have the thought, oh, I have to do my taxes. Oh no, there's so much to know about this year's tax code. I wonder what I can deduct. I wonder what changed from last year. I wonder if my accountant is up to date on these things. I wonder if we file all the right documents. What if we don't file all the right documents? What if we miss something? What if they audit me because of it? What if they think it's criminal? Oh my God, what if I go to jail? And just like that, soon as they sit down, seconds later, their imagination has already put them in jail. Smart people imagine too much, and their imagination, which is a beautiful tool, is being used against them. They consider too much and think too many steps ahead of what's necessary. Being smart also allows you to cheat through life and not learn the discipline required to get real work done. Because your 20% effort was probably better than most people's 80% effort, you were able to find it easy what other people had to work for, which weakened your muscles of putting in work. It catches up to you somewhere. You were able to go to classes, jobs, and pick up so fast that you maybe didn't have to do as much work, do all the assignments. For me personally, I failed English, the one subject, because it was the only class I couldn't get by just taking tests. I had to write, I had to read, I had to sit down, I had to do all this work and show up with it the next day, and it wasn't the way that I proved that I knew something. I was really good at taking tests. But if you took me to a math class, I learned in 2 days what it took other people 5 days to learn, so I didn't have to show up as much. And the math teachers never checked homework because they knew the homework was for you to practice out all the mistakes. And I didn't make silly mistakes. I remembered if I made a mistake once to never make that mistake again. So I didn't build any discipline to do any work after school. I never did any homework. As a smart person, you learned all the wrong lessons. You learned you didn't have to follow up your natural abilities with hard work. And hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. You didn't develop the daily discipline required to reach levels not accessible by your 20% effort. To continue to challenge your environment, to find yourself in rooms where you are not the smartest. You failed to develop the character traits to attract that room. And being so unfamiliar, you might even have some fear tied to being surrounded by those who combined their talent and hard work and reached heights that are reserved for the best of the best. But you never learned to do that work. Things only got done for you last minute. That was the hack that you learned. Things get done when a paper or an assignment is due the next day. Because of underestimating the time required and overestimating your ability, maybe not even having enough practice on getting projects done, you never learned exactly how much time it took or takes to do excellent work, to be the best of the best. Smart people tend to leave everything for the last minute and very brilliantly prove themselves their own brilliance, or what they think is brilliant compared to everybody else in the rooms that they are not in. They leave work for the last minute and under that immense pressure get more work done than a normal person would be able to. So it feeds this self-fulfilling prophecy of leaving even future work undone until the last minute again. Never ending loop. You're feeding this loop because you learn that you can wait till the last minute and still get it done. Although it's not always the best work. It's still probably adequate or above the rest in the room that you are in, but it's not the best. And that is a satisfactory arrangement for yourself, for you. You've agreed to that. Just being satisfactory. Doing it last minute. You tend to procrastinate because the last minute jolt of urgency leaves no room for discussion. No room for emotions and doubts. No room for your imagination to run wild about all that must get done. You just have to get to work and do it. And that causes a level of production that, if sustained, could be the very key to success. That level of production that you hit in the last minute, if you sustained it. Your capacity, smart people's capacity for overcoming obstacles and pulling out all stops to meet the goal exhibits your superhuman abilities. Abilities bogged down and drowned out by the day-to-day whim of your nature and the poorly managed emotional state of being. It takes a simulated or real crunch time deadline for your abilities to surface and shine. Imagine if they were able to access this more often. None of us would stand a chance in comparison. This urgency also manages one of the strongest pull in an intelligent person, which is their tendency to be a perfectionist. And let me tell you, I think as a society, in interviews, it was popular to tell people our weakness as perfectionism. We thought it was a cute way of embodying a strength into a weakness because it shows we care to make things as good as possible. But let me tell you something. If I heard today, it wouldn't fool me into thinking it's any bit of a strength at all. The world is plagued with perfectionists. You are not special. It is the most common deficiency of our age. We overthink, overconsider, overreact, overcorrect, all in an attempt to make something as perfect as possible. When just enough would have done the job and allowed you to move on to the next thing. Good enough is better than perfect. The volume of production and how many things you can affect matters way more than enhancing one thing. And when put in a crunch time, when leaving everything for the last minute, this is where you leave, as a smart person, no room for your perfectionist tendencies. As a smart person, you also haven't broken your tendency for the shiny object syndrome. Because you are good at so many things, you failed to pick one thing and run with it. You have indiscernible talents. Can't tell which one is your natural talent. You have so many natural tendencies. You find progress in anything you pick up. You get addicted to the immediate progress and go from one thing to another thing just to experience that immediate progress. But you don't go deep enough to get great at any one thing. It's always easiest to go from beginner to intermediate, to see progress. It is only when someone attempts to go from intermediate to expert when you hit a plateau or the wall of diminishing returns. It is here where memorable and impactful people are found. But you don't know that place because you don't go swim in deep waters. You don't honor the talents God has given you enough to follow them up with making use of the reason why He gave them to you. It isn't to hoard them, to leave them undeveloped. No, it's to do His work. That will require you to battle all the human parts of you, to cling to ease, and work hard to reach a realm of His grace. To do divine work, you must get over your human tendencies. He has sent us all here to do His work. Why are you not doing it? So ask yourself, am I too smart for my own good in all the wrong ways? Listen, you might be the opposite type of person. You might start things without finishing them. You might not overthink. You might not overanalyze. You might just jump right into things. Charge forward, like David Allen says. Maybe the prescription for you is completely different. And I'm not saying being one way or being another way is absolutely right. You have to have the right setting for the right tactic to apply. The right animal in the right environment is the best and least disruptive. There's an aspect of self-awareness here that we shouldn't overlook. But for those who fall into this category of this episode, ask yourself, am I too smart for my own good? Why do so many people who seemingly have less talent than me, less skill, less hours put in, are doing more? Why is that? If I'm so smart, what is it that I lack that they have? Has my intelligence actually helped me escape the ordinary pitfalls? Do I live an outstanding life? Does my imagination help me? Has my intelligence helped me? Does my imagination run wild? Does it make me more worried, more fearful, more paranoid? Does it bring me into more adventures and spontaneity or less? Do I imagine the ride there and the ride home and tend to opt out of things because of all the imagined difficulties and inconveniences? Does your intelligence help you? And if you're like me and the answer is no, it does not help you. And listen, this isn't about who is smart and who is stupid. There isn't a black or white, smart or stupid. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to think it's stupid its entire life. But we have to, again, apply the right tactic in the right setting. So what I propose is when you are too smart for your own good in certain aspects, we adopt what I'm calling the selective stupidity system. You have to be selectively stupid in certain aspects and certain things that you're trying to accomplish. Have a thick-headed resolution to win regardless of obstacle. Be thick-headed, like a stupid person. Have the resolution to win regardless of the obstacle you are facing. Don't over-consider challenges and under-consider your own brute force commitment to figure it out, to walk through that wall. Don't underestimate your opponent, but don't undersell theirs, which is you. When challenges or failures happen, take it how Forrest Gump would take it. Don't even feel the hurt. Maybe it doesn't even register. Maybe you just have to accept that it's part of the job and the process. Play dumb instead. Instead of being so smart and feeling bad and what you should have done and how you should have anticipated this failure and how you should have planned around it, play the curious, dumb Columbo going through life, being happily surprised by a new turn in the story. Just seek and draw out more information through a light-hearted, childlike questioning and acceptance. Oh, this happened? I wonder why I didn't see it. Why, what does it want me to know? Be thick-headed where you are over-applying your mind. Use it to charge forward instead. And just worry about one step at a time. Not looking too far ahead. You can't live in the past and you can't live so far in the future or you will never see tomorrow. Just worry about one step at a time. On the way appears. You can't anticipate all the forces of nature that will come your way on your journey, as tailwinds or headwinds to help you or to hurt you. Sure, have a plan, but it isn't your job to avoid every obstacle along the way. Just avoid the big ones that might break down your car, but your back can handle a few bumps. Just worry about the next 3 steps. Imagine you are going through life with a flashlight that only illuminates 3 feet ahead of you. Everything else is in the dark, and it is meant to be. If you look too far ahead, you might miss the rock ahead of you or the hole in the ground. Your job is only to make the next 3 steps safely. This is your selective stupidity system at work. Move when you only have 40 to 70% of the information. 70 is probably still a little bit too much. At 40%, you should be able to move forward. Charge forward even with less than that and learn as you go. Have a minimum viable product mentality versus trying to satisfy your perfectionist tendencies and having the perfect product. Surrender to the fact that it will never be perfect. I love photography, and every time I take a picture, try to capture a scene or a moment, if I could just explain to you how far apart that picture is from what I saw in my head, you would be disgusted. The picture says to me 1,000 words about all the ways it doesn't match up to what I saw in my head. And that has kept me from sharing much of my pictures. But having any picture is better than the never attained perfect picture. Strolling through Muir Woods in Northern Cali, I came across a photographer who told me his main motivation in life is to take pictures because he gets letters from seniors in old-aged homes in wheelchairs who thank him for sharing a scene they physically couldn't go and see. Any picture of mine buried in a hard drive is better than depriving the possibility of such a contribution, even if it isn't exactly the one I saw in my head. Any minimally viable product or output hits more home than the one frozen in time and dead in your storage of buried dreams. Don't have so much arrogance as to think that you know what your audience would appreciate. You don't embody the collective consciousness of billions of people. What you see, they don't. What you don't see, they do. What you don't appreciate, they might cherish. Just put one imperfect thing out after another. You also have to apply what I'm calling systemized sentimental separation. Systematically detach yourself from your emotions. Task out your deliverables, things that you need to get done, and leave no room for emotions, because this is an emotional game, and your intelligent mind works against you, uses your emotions against you, and then justifies them with logic. So, to systematically work around that, give yourself hard deadlines to get things done, but owe it to someone else. Since you can negotiate with yourself on your own deadlines and make them softer than they actually are in the grand aspect of mattering in your life, commit for it to be sent to someone else's inbox for review by a certain time, or uploaded and published by a certain time. Have a hard deadline. And let the you that's detached from the doing decide what needs to get done. Have a part of your week that goes into the planning phase, the one that manages and sets up all the work for you to do, and all you have to do is show up and do the work like the employee. Detach the planning phase from the doing phase. Planning is comfortable. You have to move on to execution. Having potential is not the same as doing something with it. You have to execute. And then when it's time for the employee to show up and do the work on that day, nothing should be able to stop you, and no one you can negotiate with to adjust. You can't let the emotional whim of that day dictate what gets done. Given the time and space, your overactive mind will keep you from doing the necessary project or work. It will imagine all the things that can go wrong, how great it can be instead, how it doesn't match your idea or is not perfect. But as the employee, the business, the work needs to get done. It needs what it needs, and it cannot depend on how you feel and what your mind is telling you. And with respect to deadlines and the assignments, there won't be time to think about all this. You shouldn't be leaving yourself time to think and imagine your way out of it. There's a job to get done, and it is yours to do. And in applying other parts of the selective stupidity system, your smart brain only gets you to do things that you know you will be good at. So do things that you know you won't be good at. Do what you hate doing. I'm sitting here writing and have become an avid reader over the last 2 years with our pandemic. I've read more books in the past year and a half than I have in my entire life. My English teacher would be proud of me. I still have remorse for the work that I missed out in school because of the time that passed and the time that I missed, that I didn't develop reading. I still consider myself a slow reader, but ask me again in 10 years of reading like I have been in the past 2, and I may make up that gap. Point is, do all the things you don't think you're good at, or imagine all the ways you think they can go wrong. Don't just do what comes naturally to you. I'm not saying spend 80% of your time working on your weaknesses, but you should at least spend 20. Expose yourself to all the work you missed out on, because there might be some fundamental developments in there that will slip over back into enhancing your strengths. Like, I can't see how becoming a better reader and a writer is not going to help me with everything else that I'm doing. It already is. I've relied so much on my ability to speak that I didn't develop other mediums through which to express. And the more I write, the more I fall in love with how it's different than my speaking. How I'm able to get even more precise with my words and what I'm trying to explain. I love semantics. I drool over sentences that get to the heart of the matter. When something being felt or seen is encapsulated so tightly with words that you can feel it tug on every essence of your being. I love writing for this. I love writers who can speak because of this. So do what you hate doing. There might be something you're depriving yourself and the world from developing that will spill over to everything else that you're trying to do. And also, something my friend always told me, use every quality you have to help you, not hurt you. Use all you have to your benefit only, not to overextend any quality. Any quality overextended is not healthy. Everything is good in moderation. Being too smart isn't healthy. Being too humble holds you back. Analyzing too much slows you down. Feeling too much bogs you, messes you up. Use all you have to help you, not to hurt you. And lastly, acknowledge, as a smart person, or as anybody listening to this, acknowledge that you need help and seek therapy. I say that tongue in cheek, but because the mental state of an intelligent person is probably more chaotic than the ordinary person, there is an even more need to sort through the mess. There is a danger in any privilege, intelligence, wealth, family designation, status, success. These must be managed and put into proper perspective, or they turn toxic. You can probably use someone to talk to and file all your experiences appropriately and the meaning that you give them. So seek therapy. I say that with sincerity. I love you, my family. May your gifts give back.